Welcome to the Giving Nook, where nonprofit leaders, fundraisers, foundations, and philanthropists come to talk all things giving and impact. I'm Courtney, founder of The Philanthropy Place, a nonprofit consulting firm and your go-to fractional fundraising partner. I've spent my career in the nonprofit space helping organizations raise more, stress less, and build fundraising strategies that actually work. And now, I'm giving those insights straight to you. Whether you're in the fundraising trenches, leading a nonprofit, or just curious about how to give more intentionally, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the Giving Nook. I am absolutely so thrilled and so honored to have one of my favorite people on the podcast today, welcoming Angie Blumel, the president and CEO of Jackson County CASA. We are going to have a wonderful conversation. So I will jump right in without further ado and just start with hello, welcome. Please tell the listeners a little bit of your background in this space in the nonprofit sector and eventually sort of what led you to be at Jackson County CASA.
Okay. That's a lot to remember. So just be sure to just remind me.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy to be here, Courtney, and I'm so excited for your venture and to be on the Giving Nook. This is super exciting. So thank you. Yeah. As you said, I am president and CEO of Jackson County CASA, or Court-Appointed Special Advocates. We exist to serve as the voice for a child who is in foster care due to experiencing abuse or neglect. And how we do that is by recruiting and training community volunteers, people like you and me. Mm-hmm. Not only am I a staff member of Jackson County CASA, I'm also a volunteer, as are you.
Yes.
And we recruit and train volunteers to advocate for the kids' best interest in family court so that kids have a voice. They can say where they want to live. You know, they can talk about what services they need, how things are going for them, and really just be well represented. So I've been at Jackson County CASA now for 8 years this
amazing.
April. It is amazing. And thank you.
Yeah.
And it goes so fast.
Yeah.
It goes so fast. And the reason I'm at CASA is because it really marries my two favorite things in the world, and that's advocating for children and families and also working closely with volunteers. So if you look back at my career, I worked at Metropolitan Organization to Counter Sexual Assault, MOXA, for about 15 years and was an advocate and then a volunteer manager, and then got into program development and management and ultimately into fundraising. So Jackson County CASA was just the perfect place for me to land these last 8 years, given my experience at MOXA. And then I also spent some time in Chicago working in the domestic violence field as well. So I've had a little bit of everything in the nonprofit field, but I got to say advocacy and working closely with volunteers, those are just two of my favorites.
I love that answer because it's such a you answer. And I have to ask because we talk about it all the time in the sector, and I don't think I actually know this, so this is me learning something new. Did you choose the nonprofit sector or did you fall into it initially?
That's a great question. I don't know how to answer that because I'll tell you, I graduated college, with a degree in family studies, human services.
Okay.
And I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know exactly what that would look like. And I was so fortunate right out of college to be hired as an advocate at MOXA, and just kind of fell into the perfect place for me because I had many great mentors there, and I learned so much. And so I knew I wanted to help people. I didn't know what that would look like. And I've just had good luck throughout my entire career. So I've been really fortunate to work for great people, to learn from great people, and work alongside wonderful folks as well.
I can say that about you as well, having worked underneath you and alongside you and in partnership with you and through our work with Jackson County CASA. We'll talk about the Chiefs Charity Game here in a little bit. But I would love to just share with our listeners a little bit more about CASA's growth because it's been significant in the last 5-10 10 years specifically.
Yep.
Would you give us a little bit of a sneak peek as to like what's behind the curtain there? How many staff do you have? What makes you different at Jackson County CASA than other CASAs? Because I know there is a specialty piece that Jackson County CASA offers.
Sure. So a little background and context on CASA programs. There are over 900 nationally. And, we exist in different forms. We at Jackson County CASA are a standalone 501c3. We have to raise our budget, every year. We are a member program of the National CASA Association, but, don't receive our funding from National CASA Association or necessarily from Jackson County, although they're one of our funding streams. But I think that's important that people understand we're a nonprofit, just like other nonprofits in Kansas City, where we got to raise that budget. And so when I started in 2017, it was clear the board really wanted to see the organization grow, as did the staff and the volunteers, because we knew our service model works really well. And what that model looks like at Jackson County CASA, we're unique because we have a 3-person team that serves each child. And what I mean by that is we have, of course, the wonderful CASA volunteer, the court-appointed special advocate, but also then a specialized staff member that supports that volunteer and just walks alongside them through the maze of the child welfare system and make sure that they have the resources they need to best advocate for the child that they're serving. So CASA volunteer, the advocate supervisor, we call them, who is really the CASA's person at CASA. Yeah. And then we also employ a team of attorneys who act as the children's guardians ad litem. They are literally their lawyers in court. And that's the unique piece. Not every CASA program around the country has that. In fact, very few do. So our children have access to their attorney, their guardian ad litem, their CASA volunteer, and their advocate supervisor, who's that expert on child welfare, all under one roof. So we're unique, and we know that model works really well. We have the data to show that kids served by us spend less time in foster care, are more likely to reunify with their parent or parents, or end up staying within their family system. They do better in school. They have more resources available to them. So it's something we're really proud of, the way that we operate. And when I joined, the board said, this model works. Let's go big. Let's make sure that every kiddo that's in, child welfare in the child welfare system or foster care in Jackson County has the benefit of our model. So from there, it was just a mad sprint, really, to figure out, okay, we need to grow, which means we need more space. We're practically out of space in our existing building that we owned. We need more staff. We need more CASA volunteers. And so I met you actually in a couple of years into my role when we decided as an organization to have a capital campaign.
Sure.
And I was so fortunate to work with you as our partner, our consultant partner in the capital campaign. And we set about to raise, I think, initially, we thought, we'll raise $3 million, $3.25 million. And we ended up raising $4 million, thanks to you and our wonderful campaign committee and incredible support from the community. So that allowed us to really expand our physical plant, but also our staff as well. And that was in 2021, 2022. And then in 2023, we moved into our new space. We started adding more staff. So we went from, in 2017, I think we had about 22 staff to now 40. Our budget increased from $1.5 million when I started to now just under $4 million annually. And our volunteer corps has increased in size as well. So it has been a lot of growth. And I got to give just huge props to our team, the team at CASA, for just living in constant change. That kind of growth, that quickly, they are just faced with change on a daily basis. And boy, they handled it beautifully. And we had, throw the pandemic in there.
Sure.
We had that.
Yeah, small thing in the middle of a campaign.
21,
yeah.
2020, yeah.
Yes.
We were still dealing with the pandemic as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
It was a wonderful thing to witness as a consultant and on the journey. And then again, now in partnership with the Chiefs Charity Game, the staff is so dedicated to the mission. The board is the volunteers. You've never seen anything like it until you actually get to sit around a round table and see the volunteers at CASA. I mean, they're incredible. I just have to kind of break up a technical question and ask, what keeps the CASA volunteers, the staff inspired? I mean, this is hard work. Yeah. This is very, very draining as a CASA volunteer myself. Yeah. You think you know what you're getting into, and it's easier, and we'll talk about this because I'm going to make a pitch for CASA volunteers because it's easier than you think it is. And it's also mentally and emotionally can be draining, and it can be very powerful because the highs are so high. The highs are so high in it, and there are also some lows. Yep. So what do you think it is that keeps everyone motivated?
The kids, absolutely, and families. We meet children and families at quite possibly some of the worst moments in their lives, and to see them work so hard to maintain their family unit or enter into a new family. The kids are just incredible, and the families are amazing. I think that it's interesting. We just did a culture survey within the organization, and scored very high on why are you here amongst the staff, and the staff said the mission. We're here for the children and families that we serve. We want to see them be successful. We want the kids to have happy, healthy childhoods and then grow into, happy adults that are, productive in our community. And so it's the mission for sure. And I would say to the people, because you mentioned not only the kids and families we work with, but the staff and the volunteers, just really special people. It's a unique volunteer opportunity. It's not like going to your local church and filling backpacks with food or, going to a soup kitchen or something like that. It is really, you are a child's consistent caring adult throughout their time in foster care. And that's incredible. That's something really special. And I often hear from our CASA volunteers, like, I get way more out of it than I put into it. And I'm like, really? Because you put a lot into it. Yeah, you put a lot of your personal time and energy and resources into serving the kids that you serve. So.
Sure. And I would love to just take a moment to go a little bit high level, because I know there's been a lot of transition within how many kids you are serving now in the last few years and what's still to come. So currently, approximately, how many kids is Jackson County CASA serving, or do you plan to serve in the next 12 months?
Yeah. So currently we're serving just under 1,000 kids, and that's about 85, almost 90% of the kids who are in foster care right now in the county. Probably by the end of the year, we'll serve 1,100 or so. We'll be closer to 100% of the kids, and that was ultimately the goal. Our board many years ago said we want to serve all the kids. At the time, we were serving about 50%, and they said we want all of the kids to have the benefit of a CASA volunteer, a CASA staff attorney known as the guardian ad litem, and a CASA advocate supervisor. And so we're getting there. By the end of this year, we should be there.
Yes, and we will talk again about the call to action, because I know with that increase in the need, there is an increase, that there is the need for volunteers to serve these kids.
Absolutely.
And it's so important. And I know we both, again, from a CASA volunteer lens, it really, truly impacts the child and the way that you show up for them and that consistency over time. Yep. I'm coming up on, I think, a year and a half of my very first kiddo and family, and, we're still in it. And she reminds me constantly, she is older youth, but she reminds me constantly of, like, thank you so much. Like, it's so nice to, like, have somebody around constantly. Yep. And I think about that, and she has mentioned to me a few times, it's interesting because I really feel like I connect with you, or, there's like something special there. And I feel thankful that she feels that way, number one. But it made me start to think about, like, is there a perfect, like, CASA volunteer profile? But there's so many CASA volunteers, and everyone that I know that I've met at the volunteer forums or roundtables or just celebrations for volunteers, everyone looks different. They're at different places in life. But I did want to ask you, like, what does it look like to be a volunteer, and can anyone be a volunteer?
Yeah, Absolutely. I would say, yeah. I mean, you really need to just have a heart for serving kids and kind of, if you're that person in your world where people come to you and they ask for your advice or they tell you things or you're always rooting for the underdog, you would be a terrific CASA volunteer. You don't need to have previous experience in healthcare or mental health or social work or anything like that. You really just need to have a heart for serving kids and a desire to really get to know them, understand what it is they want, and represent that information to family court.
Sure.
So anybody can do it. And you're right, our volunteers, just, if you lined them all up, it would just be kind of funny because there is such a difference in, ages and people's race, ethnicity, their socioeconomic status, where they come from in the city. It's just a group of people who really care and think, you know what? Kids should have a safe, happy childhood, and I can do something about that.
Sure. Do you think there are any misconceptions? You sort of talked to a few of them, but one of my misconceptions I had about being a CASA volunteer or being nervous, and I have to shout out to here Atwater because obviously I met you both a long time ago and during your capital campaign in the 2020 days. But, I said, there's something here. Like I'm kind of getting reeled in. And then at a personal conversation with my mother, and she shared with me, I was on CASA's board in Oklahoma and all these things. And so it's one of those things I didn't even realize why I was maybe feeling more called than usual. Yep. And I said to him, my biggest fear is like, what if I can't show up? What if the whole point of this is consistency for the kids, right? Like, what if I let them down 1 month? Or what if I don't know enough about the court system or to represent them, or if I don't have the background in social work? And it's all these things that you don't know until you're in it, right? And you go through the most incredible training with the training staff at CASA. I mean, I shout them out. I did the weekend intensive course, but it was so helpful. Do you think there are misconceptions that you can kind of, pull the shade back and say, like, don't worry about that. That's not a problem.
Yeah. One of the things the other day, somebody in the community asked me, what do you do? And I was just telling them. And how I answer that question is, I don't talk about what I do. I say, I work at a place, let me tell you about our volunteers. And I tell stories about our volunteers and what they do that's so incredible and special. And she was listening for a little bit and she was like, so do the kids live with you? And I was like, no, sorry. I didn't explain that well enough. Yeah, no, that's a great, no, you're not fostering the children. You're not a foster parent. You are visiting them regularly in their placement, their foster care placement, their school. You might go see them at one of their extracurricular activities. You're just visiting them, getting to know them, and understanding what it is that they want and need. You're building that relationship. So you use the word consistency, and that's so important, because foster care is chaotic, and kids can be moved from placement to placement. They might be moved from their school and all their friends that they know. They might not be able to participate in extracurricular activities that they are, fond of, like ball or cheer or whatever, because they're in a new placement and that person just can't get them there. So their lives are constantly in shift and changing. And so having a consistent caring adult that's visiting them, we say at least once a month. Many of our CASA volunteers will go more often than that, and checking in with them and making sure that they know, hey, what do you want me as the CASA volunteer to tell the court? What do they need to know about what's going on with you? Sure. And accompanying the child to court. Court hearings, kids are invited to participate in that way. Team meetings, kids also can participate in team meetings, and the CASA volunteers right next to them, so that it's not about them without them. We're not talking about our kids without engaging them, age appropriate, in age appropriate ways. But I think that CASA volunteers think, oh, I gotta, the kids living with me, I'm driving them everywhere. No. You are their advocate. You're going to see them, get to know them, and represent them.
Amazing. Yeah. And as we talk about sort of the need for volunteers and what it takes, there is this wonderful thing that I get to be part of with you that I'd be remiss to not talk about today, which is the fact that Jackson County CASA has been named the beneficiary of the Chiefs charity game by the Kansas City Chiefs for 3 years. And that term started in 2024. That's right. It runs through this year, 2025, and through 2026. So what does that mean for CASA? What does that look like for the organization question because
my gosh.
I only was brought on, thanks to you, to help partner on the Chiefs charity game afterwards. But what did that look like leading up to that point with
Sure.
the Chiefs?
So first, I can't say enough good things about the Chiefs organization and the people over there, Ishmael Shoemate and Sharf, everybody over there. But those are the two folks that we work with most closely. And it's a process. The Chiefs charity game is something the Chiefs have done now for 41 years. And a number of years ago, they began an application process where nonprofits could apply to be the beneficiary of the game. And that it takes a written application. You share your financials, your ability to fundraise through the mechanisms that the Chiefs provide you for fundraising, and then an interview as well. And so Jackson County CASA had applied previously once before, and it just wasn't our time. We weren't selected. Our good friends over at Moxa were selected, and we were so happy for them. And it was right. The time was perfect for them to have the Chiefs charity game as they were entering into a capital campaign.
I feel like also I'm going to stop you real quick because I feel like that is the number one rule of fundraising specifically is don't take no as never. It's
That's
just
right.
not now.
That's right.
And how brave of you all and how persistent of you all to say, no, now is our time. Let's try again.
Yeah. We weren't ready. And I kind of in the back of my mind, I thought, this is a long shot, but I want to get our foot in the door. Sure. I want them to know who we are and see our growth over time and see what we're capable of. And sure enough, that's what we showed to the Chiefs is we came back, we applied in the next round, and we were so fortunate to be selected. And they commented, we really saw, what you were able to do here in terms of being prepared for an opportunity of this magnitude. So the Chiefs charity game, for those of you in the community that aren't familiar, is an opportunity for nonprofits to work closely with the Chiefs to have lots of really cool behind-the-scenes benefits that you aren't able to just buy, as a member of the community. You need to partner with the beneficiary of the game, and it's things like access to a suite for the charity game itself, which is always a preseason game, and some on-field opportunities, sideline visit. You might get a chance to do a coin toss. You might get a chance to have the first pass, different things like that. And the Chiefs provide all these really wonderful opportunities that we are able then to share with our individual and corporate partners in the community and get them involved and fundraise that way. But I think the reason that CASA was so attractive to the Kansas City Chiefs when the selection process came around is not only are we looking to raise funds for the organization and the mission, but we want to raise our profile in the community. And
well said.
Chiefs Kingdom, come on, show up, volunteer. Yes. We need you.
Yes.
And hopefully speak to some fans that are like, wow, I could do that. That doesn't sound like, too hard. And they provide lots of training and support. I could become a CASA. And so we're finding the relationship with the Chiefs has really elevated our presence in the community, and it's allowing us to recruit more volunteers, which is so exciting.
Well, and it's incredible because the Chiefs are in Jackson County right now, right? They're in the backyard.
Yep.
I think that's sort of the call to action is one of the things that I know that you've shared with me in prior conversations is the importance of also ensuring that we have diversity in volunteers. Mm-hmm. And so I think oftentimes if you look around the stadium during a Kansas City Chiefs game, it's everyone from everywhere of every age, of every walk of life. And it's really cool that on the charity game specifically, we get to fill those seats with our CASA kiddos, their families, their volunteers, as well as incredible corporate donors and individual donors and sponsors. So I feel like it just kind of brings together the magic of everything. Yep. But I would be curious as you sort of reflect back because there's been a year under our belt and we are just now kicking off. So I will say you'll probably be hearing from Angie or I if you're listening to this in a corporate or individual way, because we want to make sure people get to experience it. And one thing we said time and time again to our board, to the CASA volunteers, you just don't know unless you've experienced the charity game itself the day of. Did you have a favorite part of that day?
Well, I had a line during the day that I was like, this was more fun than my wedding. I mean, it you're running around the stadium, you're talking with donors who are so excited to be there and support CASA, but also, be there for the Chiefs. And they've had all these wonderful experiences. One thing I neglected to mention, and it's probably the coolest thing, is a lot of our donors were able to spend some time in in the Founders Suite, where the Hunt family lives when they're in Kansas City, and enjoy the beautiful spread that they put out, the buffet and the bar and the seats, and just you're kind of awestruck. It's Chiefs royalty, and see all of the memorabilia from Lamar Hunt, and it's just really special. You get
special.
They pull the curtains back for you.
Yeah.
And I heard from so many people who participated that, I had no idea. I had no idea about just all this cool stuff. And we got to go on the field. And we got to touch the field. And, we got a private tour of the locker room.
And King and Patrick.
Oh, my gosh.
King Stone was our kid of the game last year. And he, was on the field. And Patrick, we have this incredible photo. But Patrick leaned down and I think kind of shocked him, gave him his gloves, right? Or was that Travis that gave him the
Travis.
gloves? Okay.
So
he got double whammied with some really cool
Patrick
stuff.
gave him the ball. The Chiefs outfitted him with his own jersey that has
Such
a name on it.
Cool experience.
One of the benefits is we're able to pick the kid of the game.
Sure.
They're called the Chiefs kid of the game. And so we were so excited to be able to pick a child that we worked with that's an amazing, brilliant, hilarious, creative child. And he got to go on the field and receive the game ball from Patrick. And then, Travis Kelce just walked by real casually and shook his hand and handed him his gloves. And I mean, it's just incredible.
And it was like one of those things. King was such a sweet kid because he wrote us all thank you notes afterwards. Where I have to, he's gonna do incredible things. And
he is, and his little handwriting.
Yeah, it was very, very sweet. It was very, very moving.
Great handwriting. So
and we had so many kids there. We put over 600 CASA kids and families in seats last year to make sure that a lot of them, it was their very first time experiencing a Chiefs game. And lucky for us, it was again a home preseason game. But for some reason, we got so lucky and the starters played the entire first half. So a lot of these kids were watching it from lower level seats. Some of them were in clubs, some of them were in suites themselves. So it was a really incredible day. And as I reflect back and I kind of sort of make a pitch for this year because I have to, it's such an incredible event that if you're thinking about being a corporate sponsor or an individual sponsor, there are so many perks and benefits. You can go to chiefscharityGame.com. There's a full sponsorship playbook that outlines everything, but it's so exciting because the actual benefits themselves start early on in the spring. So Draft Fest is coming up April 22nd, I believe, or April 25th. Sorry, A Light of Hope is April 22nd. We'll talk about that. But yeah, so we have all these things that start and then it runs all the way through. And then at different sponsorship levels, you're getting tickets to games. You're getting actual, some of them season tickets, upper level, some of them, club seat tickets. It is a whole package and it is very good value, and you're doing such good work for CASA and our kids in the meantime while you're sporting.
Absolutely.
So I just can't praise it enough because I'm like, I look around at all of these other sponsor opportunities and I'm like, this is really cool. And it only lasts for this, this bit of time for CASA. So we want to soak it in.
I would say for corporate partners, what a fantastic opportunity for employee engagement.
Yes.
One of the opportunities is to get your employees, your team members on the field for the national anthem holding the Chiefs flag, things like that. So it's a really, it's a win-win. Yeah. It's a win-win.
Is there anything that you're looking forward to this year that we think we're going to do a little bit differently? I feel like we've been, and this is kind of off the cuff because we've been deciding some sort of like special perks with maybe a few parties or a few behind the scenes things. I know that it's in the works, but opportunities to involve the kids maybe a little bit more this year.
Yeah, I think we're working with the Chiefs and we'll be able to share more information down the road, but it's likely that we'll be able to put on a field day for our kids out at the stadium and in the practice facility maybe. So more to come. But that's just the kind of partners they are.
They are incredible. They want to brainstorm.
What can we do to serve kids in foster care and give them this amazing experience?
Yeah, and we get it as well for committee members. If you are interested in joining as not just a sponsor, but as a committee member, I feel like we're always looking for growth in our committee and that opportunity to be engaged. But again, if you haven't been part of it, definitely take a look at, again, chiefscharityGame.com. Everything that you'll see is there. We now have photos up from last year and all the exciting things. And also as you look through and you're like, what did she say? The Hunt family suite? What is that? Well, we want to tell you what the founder suite is because we have photos and it's incredible. And she was not lying. It's very interesting to sit next to. You'll be in between Clark Hunt and Mark Donovan watching the Chiefs charity game and you're like, what's happening here?
And at one point, Tavia Hunt took off her Super Bowl ring and was passing it around, showing it to the kids and like, oh yeah, just pass it down the row. And, the kids are holding it. And I mean, just so welcoming and wonderful.
Yeah, I would love to ask real quick as we transition to talk about sort of the volunteer impact of Chiefs Charity Game. The one thing that we just quickly mentioned is that we do want to have the CASA volunteers be involved. And I love what you said, so I'm going to kind of end on this note as it pertains to the charity game. You want the CASA volunteers to be the champion and the hero for the kids that day. And I thought that was such a genius idea to ensure that as we navigate making sure that some of our CASA kids and families get to attend the game again this year, that the CASA volunteer actually will organize all of that. And they get to show up for the kid in that way, which is so special, right?
So excited.
It's just an incredible experience. So we've been talking a lot about the Chiefs Charity Game, and obviously that event is going to take place at some point in August. We don't know until the NFL schedule drops in May. But one event that just took place this last week would be the Light of Hope award-winning breakfast with CASA, and the Chiefs did play a big role in that this year. We had a special video performance. So do you want to talk a little bit about Light of Hope?
Yeah, so this was actually our 25th anniversary of the Light of Hope breakfast.
Amazing.
So it's an event that's been going for 25 years, and so proud of that. And as you mentioned, it is award-winning, and that we've been named by The Independent magazine as one of the top 5 breakfast or luncheon events in Kansas City. And actually, we're the largest breakfast event, or the largest event of its kind, a fundraising breakfast. So
how many attendees?
We usually have, just under 1,000.
Incredible.
So, between 800 and 1,000. And this year, as you mentioned, we had Clark Hunt drop in via video to make some remarks, as the Hunt Family Foundation was they were our honorees for this year's breakfast because they deserve it. 41 years of hosting the Chiefs Charity Game, raising money for kids and families, and it was a well-deserved honor, and he was so gracious, and it was a lot of fun.
And at the Lowe's, nonetheless, a very big switch up, and what a beautiful venue, and a crazy good menu.
Yeah.
And how exciting that you said this, again, a little under 1,000 people.
Yeah.
The event starts at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Like the program itself starts, and that many people consistently year after year show up for CASA, show up for the kids, to hear those inspirational stories, to honor the honorees, et cetera. And I'm always just fascinated by that because I will never forget the first breakfast I went to back in 2021. And I thought, surely this is just, a breakfast. When you don't know, you don't realize what grand scale.
Yeah.
And the Lowe's does it justice. And having 1,000 people be in that room.
We were so excited to refresh the event a little bit this year by moving from the Sheraton, and they were great to work with. And we, we're so pleased to have them as partners for many years. But it was time for just something new and a refresh. And our 25th anniversary of the breakfast, we moved it over to Lowe's, as you mentioned. And wow, I mean, just that facility is gorgeous. Kansas City is ready for, I know there's a lot of talk out there that people think we might not be ready for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Kansas City's going to show up. We're going to look great. Our hotels, our restaurants, our bars, our hospitality industry, we're ready.
Sure.
And the streetcar. Of course, as well. So,
And there's a few other events that CASA puts on throughout the year. Do you want to plug those real quick?
So coming up this summer in June, we have an event every summer called Carnival for CASA. And in recent years, we've been partnering with Faulkner's Ranch, which is a beautiful, fabulous facility right outside of Lee Summit. And we invite our CASA kids and their caregivers and their CASA volunteers to come out for a day of fun. And it literally is things like, pony rides. There's a corn cannon, which I'm pretty obsessed with. It's really fun way to get your aggression out of the corn cannon. There are zip lines. There's a electronic bowl
Of
writing.
course, yes.
There's just so many
Let's
things.
throw the kids on that.
And it's very safe. Face painting and
always
hair,
huge,
a hair station, and the chief cheerleaders show up to help with face painting and the hair station. So many things. A DJ. I mean, there's just a million things to do.
Love that.
And we serve the kids lunch and their families. But not only do we invite our CASA kids and their families and the CASA volunteers for a day of fun at no charge. They are not charged anything. Our CASA kids get to come for free. We invite the community to come and bring your kids, and just it's a day to see kids who are in foster care, just like any other kids. They want to have fun, they want to play, and I challenge people who come to try to pick out the kids and families and that might be involved in the child welfare system versus families in the community. You can't. They're just like any other kids and families, and they want to have a day of fun. So it's great. So that's in June. And then coming up in the fall, we started an event a few years back called Cocktails for CASA, a Night of Hope, which is just a really fun event on a Friday night. We always have it on a Friday night so you can get in, have some fun, have some great cocktails and food and a silent auction and live auction, and then go out after if you like. And we are so happy to partner with the Abbott for that event, and it's just great.
What a beautiful space too. I know that I think moved it to the Abbott last year, and I have now I've been every year for the last couple of years.
I think you have since
it is my personal favorite event.
It's a lot of fun.
It's so much fun, and I think it's fun because I love me a good gala. But what I really love about this is it's a little less informal. I mean, it's more informal, and it's made to be truly like this conversational, fun event. And of course, you can dress up for it, but there's a lot of mission moment involved, and there's a lot of casual networking and conversations, and the live auction is short and sweet but powerful, and it's just you just do it so well.
Thank you. It really was an event started by Zach Bickle, John Vaglio, a couple of former board members.
I did not know that.
Young dads, and really involved in the community. Great philanthropists, both of them.
Yes.
And they wanted, something to draw in like-minded donors like them. Just the young families and professionals who are philanthropic, and they wanted to bring them to an event that could be fun, engaging, but not take all night on a Saturday night where you had to get a sitter for the entire day and all that kind of stuff. So they were instrumental in getting that started.
I love it. And that's a good segue to talking a little bit about some advice you might have, because I think of knowing John Vaglio and Zach Bickle and what they do with CASA and what they do for MOXA and communities. I mean, I'm just kind of generally talking about them. We have created a wonderful volunteer system at CASA. I mean, the team is incredible at onboarding and training and checking in with them. But I would love if you wouldn't mind sharing whatever advice you have for other nonprofits listening, especially those that are really working with volunteers in that strong kind of volunteer-led sustainable capacity. What are some of your tips and tricks for building that strong volunteer system?
So first I have to give credit really to our founders. We were founded by the National Council of Jewish Women as who were volunteers. The NCJW chapter here in Kansas City were made up of all volunteers who decided we need a CASA program in Kansas City. And this was back in 1983. They received training on how to do it. They went out and got funds, to start the organization. And so we were founded by volunteers. And so volunteers have always been the lifeblood of the organization. And well before me, we've had lots of wonderful professionals in place to support volunteers. So I would say a big tip or trick is if you're really going to seriously engage volunteers, and I say this as a volunteer as well in the community, it takes, it drives me crazy when people say, they're free. Volunteers are free. No, you need to invest in a really good volunteer program. You need to have the staff structure to support volunteers. Volunteers need to feel welcome and needed and shown how their work impacts the organization. And that takes funding, and that takes staff dedicated to supporting volunteers.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I think when people think, we'll just ask some volunteers from the community to do that, really be intentional and thoughtful about, what a volunteer role looks like, who's going to support that volunteer, anything and everything that they might need, kind of look through it through their eyes. Like, what will their experience be like from start to finish?
Sure. Yeah. And as you said, it's because especially with at least Jackson County CASA, that volunteer experience is not 1 hour, one time at a food bank. And that's, no slight to food banks. I mean, that work is important, but this is deep connection with kids who, again, we talked about that sort of reliance on that connectivity and showing up and consistency. And that's important. So I think especially if you're thinking about it from the lens of ongoing, consistent volunteerism, that was a great tip and trick. And I would love to also hear a few stories if you have any. I mean, we talk about our CASA volunteers, our CASA kiddos and their families. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Many. So again, I think I said early on when we were talking that I don't necessarily talk about what I do. I tell people let me tell you about the CASA volunteers, because that really helps people understand the organization and the work we're doing with kids and for kids. And so our CASA volunteers show up for kids in ways large and small. And I'll give you just a small example that was so impactful to a child. We had a CASA volunteer who was working with a young person for a couple of years. Her case was in the foster care system for a couple of years. And this volunteer had really developed a close relationship with the child and represented her best interests well in court. And in one of his regular visits with her, she was marching in a parade. She was dancing in a parade, performing. And he said, "Oh, I'm going to come watch you." And she was like, "Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, you're going to show up on a Saturday, and with hundreds of people, and you're going to come see me." And he was like, "I am. I'll see you there. I can't wait to see you perform." And sure enough, he, good to his word, showed up to cheer her on. She was literally dancing, performing, marching down the street. She saw him, ran over, broke out of formation, ran over, gave him a hug, and ran back, and just was so, I think, moved that he showed up for her in that way. And he was showing up for her, in really important ways for months, like representing her wishes in court and making sure that she got, she needed some educational advocacy. She got what she needed at her school, all kinds of things. But that meant so much to her, that he came with his wife and they were both there cheering her on. So that's just one example of the everyday things that our volunteers do for their kids. But a really big one is we have a volunteer who ultimately the kiddo that she was working with was matched for adoption with a family on the East Coast. And so she'd been working with this young man for about 4 years. So they're a really close bond. And she was like, "Are you sure? Do you feel comfortable going out there?" And there's a trial period, some home visits and things. And he said, Yep. I think this is my family. I'm really excited to be adopted by this family." And she said, "Okay, well, I'll check in on you, make sure everything's going well." He thought that she meant, "Oh, I'll call you, see how you're doing." She actually bought a plane ticket to fly out there and spend a weekend with him and the family to make sure it was a good fit, a good match. Not once, but twice on her own dime. Just wanted to make sure that he felt comfortable, this was the right fit, and that he knew she would always be there for him, no matter what, even if he lived halfway across the country. And that just... that's incredible. We certainly don't expect all of our volunteers to be flying around the country, but that just shows the level of her commitment and that she took that on herself to make sure that child was safe, happy, and this was a good fit. And our volunteers, like I said, do that in ways large and small all the time.
That story reminds me of the quote that we put on the back of the Chiefs Charity Game T-shirts: "Invest in a child's life, it'll change yours."
Absolutely.
And that is so true. And I would love to end on the fact that, of course, if you want to be a Jackson County CASA volunteer, I know that there's a need. So we would love for you to visit CASAKC.org and check out everything is on the website that is needed. But if someone can't volunteer right now, if they're not right at that moment, are there other ways for them to get involved or to donate?
Absolutely. Yeah, great question. And it might not be the right time for some folks, but we would invite folks to join one of our committees. We have a lot of committees that are working on really fun things like the Chiefs Charity Game, Carnival for CASA, Cocktails for CASA. There's a way to get involved and help our events be successful and run smoothly and have fun with a really fun group of people. So that is a way to engage. We also have in the summertime a back to school drive We want our kids to go back to school feeling proud. And so that means new, fresh backpacks, school supplies, clothes, so that they can show up just like every other kid in their classroom and be proud and be excited. So back to school drive in the summer, and in the fall, we have also a holiday gift drive to make sure that every kid has something under the tree. I one time had a kiddo that shared like they were being moved into foster care into a new placement, and the child, very young child, asked, "How will Santa find me?" And so, thinking about making sure that the kids wake up to something under the tree, even while in foster care, is so important. So there are lots of ways to give back in terms of not necessarily having to become a CASA volunteer right away. I would still encourage people to check that out.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would say is, if time is precious right now, resources and treasure, giving a gift to CASA. The money stays here in Kansas City. It is to serve kids who are in foster care. And we are so just really attentive to how every dollar is spent. Our board of directors is excellent. We're making sure we're good stewards of folks' donations. So I encourage people to give as well.
Amazing. Well, I will just say thank you, Angie, for your time today, for sharing everything with me. I am so thankful that you were able to share more about Jackson County CASA and appreciate your time and, again, your friendship as well.
Well, and thank you for being a CASA volunteer and for doing this for the community. This is hard work, and helping people understand how it all works, I think, is really important, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. And that's a wrap on this episode of The Giving Nook. I hope today's conversation gave you something, whether it's a fresh idea, a new perspective, or just a little more confidence in your fundraising journey. If you're loving what we're giving, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're feeling generous, a quick review helps more people like you find us. Want to keep the conversation going? Connect with me on LinkedIn or visit thephilanthropyplace.com, where I share fresh fundraising insights every other week. Here's to fundraising that feels good, works smarter, and changes lives. See you next time in The Giving Nook.